Greetings, this is Christine Van Pelt on Gibson County, Indiana, State Coordinator and Lead Recording Secretary for the Indiana Assembly. We are continuing with Brent Allen Winters' Declaration of 76, United States Constitution, a Common Lawyer Comments. And as you can see from the link above, you can go to his website, commonlawyer.com. All right, we'll go ahead and get things rolling here. So you can see that. All right. Oh, gotta remove that. Okay, here we go. Amendment 10. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are preserved to the states respectively or to the people. Comment. Amendment 10 says the Supreme Court states a truism, a fact so self-evident that to question it is silly. The states and the people keep all the powers that the Constitution have not delegated or given to the general government. In fact, our Constitution is the only channel through which the states can empower the general government to do anything. Bottom line, Amendment 10 bars the feds from using any power or Constitution Amendment 10 bars the feds from using any power our Constitution never grants them, while ensuring that the people of each of the states stay free to use those powers. These are the just powers, U.S. Declaration of 76, Section 2, which spring only from God, see Romans 13, 1-2, and disperse to the individual, granting the right to act respecting a given matter. Such a right never floats in the air, belonging to no one, and always includes a personal duty to use it according to the divine pleasure. Thus, Amendment 10 keeps at the local, accountable level those powers our Constitution never gives to the general government or prohibits to the states. However, most federal activity nowadays being outside our Constitution's list of powers usurps powers the states which the people of each state have never given the general government, thereby violating Amendment 10. Each state has sovereign power. Read any state constitution. Amendment 10 keeps that power at the state level, where the people are best able to reach those abusing power and throttle them. See this handbook, U.S. Declaration of 76, Section 8, and comment. Nowhere do federal dependents do more hurt to our Constitution than in defining, prosecuting, and punishing crimes beyond those four our Constitution enumerates. The Constitution of the United States, having delegated to Congress a power to punish treason, counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States, piracies and felonies committed on the high seas, and offenses against the law of nations, and no other crimes, any act of Congress assuming to create, define, or punish crimes other than those enumerated in the Constitution is altogether void and of no force. The power to create, define, and punish such other crimes is reserved and of right belongs solely and exclusively to the respective states, each within its own territory. James Madison and Thomas Jefferson. According to these clear statements, all Congress-invented crimes are unconstitutional. In fact, because the general government has now created and punishes almost 6,000 acts beyond these four enumerated crimes, no loyal American is safe from false political prosecution. Here, the undisputed fact is that the Constitution was made by the people, but is embodied into the several states who were parties to it, and therefore made by the states in their highest authoritative capacity. Letter from James Madison to Daniel Webster, March 15, 1833. This assent and ratification is to be given by the people, not as individuals composing one entire nation, but as composing the distinct and independent states to which they respectively belong. Federalist number 39. Give me leave to say something of the nature of the government. Who are the parties to it? The people, not the people as composed one great body, but the people as composing 13 sovereignties. Were it, as the gentleman asserts, a consolidated government, the assent of a majority of the people would be sufficient for its establishment, and as a majority have adopted it already, the remaining states would be bound by the act of the majority, even if they unanimously reprobated it. Speech to the Convention of Virginia of 6 June 1788. The general government, as early as the days of Madison and Jefferson, began kicking over our Constitution's traces. Nowadays, government has become a powerful runaway team that congressmen and presidents whip without even holding the reins. See generally Prince versus U.S. 521, U.S. 898, 1997, setting clear limits on the general government's authority over any state of the Union. I consider the foundation of the Constitution is laid on this ground, that all powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states or to the people. To take a single step beyond the boundaries thus specially drawn around the powers of Congress is to take possession of the boundless field of power, no longer susceptible of any definition. Thomas Jefferson, Opinion on the Constitutionality of a National Bank, 1791. Amendment 11, offered 1794, ratified 1798. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity, commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state, or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. Comment. Amendment 11 clarifies Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution, which gives diversity jurisdiction to the federal courts to hear cases between a state and citizens of another state. Our courts have interpreted Amendment 11 to stop anyone from suing a state. See Hans v. Louisiana, 134 U.S. 1, 1890. But to ensure that state officers would not escape federal law, Congress has passed legislation allowing actions against them. Amendment 11 was the first amendment adopted after the Bill of Rights ratification of 8 January 1798, and after the Supreme Courts having ruled that federal courts had the authority to hear cases in law and equity that a private citizen is brought against a state, and that no state enjoys sovereign immunity from another state citizen's actions in federal court. Chisholm v. Georgia, T. U.S. 419, 1793. Thus, did Amendment 11 clarify Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution, which gives jurisdiction to the judiciary to hear cases between a state and citizens of another state. Amendment 11 grants immunity to states from suit for money damages or equitable relief without their consent. The Supreme Court held that when a state invokes a federal court's removal jurisdiction, it waives Amendment 11 in that removed case. Lapidus v. Board of Regents, 535 U.S. 613, 2002. Amendment 12, offered 1803, ratified 1804. The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person voted for as president, and in distinct ballots the person voted for as president and vice president, and they shall make distinct lists of all persons voted for as president and of all persons voted for as vice president. And of the number of votes for each, which list they shall sign and certify and transmit sealed to the seat of the government of the United States, directed to the President of the Senate. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, Open all the certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be the president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person having such majority, then from the persons having the highest numbers, not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately, by ballot, the president. But in choosing the president, the votes shall be taken by states, the representation from each state having 1 vote. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of member or members from 2/3 of the states, and a majority of all the states shall be necessary to a choice. And if the House of Representatives shall not choose a president whenever the right of choice shall devolve upon them, before the 4th day of March next following, then the vice president shall act as the president, as in the case of the death or other constitutional disability of the president. The person having the greatest number of votes as vice president shall be the vice president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person have a majority, then from the 2 highest numbers on the list, the Senate shall choose the vice president. A quorum for the purpose shall consist of 2/3 of the whole number of senators, and a majority of the whole number shall be necessary to a choice. But no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. Comment. Amendment 12 supersedes Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3, and was adopted to prevent the situation that occurred after the election of 1800. The Electoral College gave Jefferson and Burr tie votes, thus throwing the selection of president into the House of Representatives, even though the electors had intended Jefferson to be president and Burr to be vice president. Amendment 12, unlike Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3, requires each elector to make a separate designation for president and vice president. As a consequence of the disputed election of 1870, Congress enacted a statute providing that if the governor has not certified his state's vote under seal, it shall not be counted unless both houses of Congress concur. Amendment 13, offered 1865, ratified 1865. Section 1. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Comment. Though some believed it well intended, even necessary, Amendment 13 did little. Oppression of former slaves and slavery, in fact, continued for decades after. The war between the states destroyed the South's well-being, prolonging oppression that otherwise was moving sure-footed to an end. For instance, Virginia had long before the war set a date certain to end slavery. Going further back, long before Parliament ended slavery in Britain's colonies, Lord Mansfield found in the Somerset case no authority for slavery in all of England's common law history. Later, the Illinois Supreme Court in the Bryant case on facts matching Somerset, both were habeas corpus slave cases arguing freedom by virtue of free soil, found the same. See Brent Allen Winter's Excellence of the Common Law, subsections 3.7.12.1, discussing the English Somerset slave case and its bearing on American common law. Of great note, the words of this Amendment 13 does not forbid voluntary servitude. Remember, Parliament, at the behest of England's central bank trading monopolies, foremost the East India Company, had justified slavery and slavers in Britain's colonies, saying even though common law forbids slavery in England, common law has no force in the American colonies, therefore slavery is permitted there. Englishmen said England's soil freed the slave whose foot touched it, but justified slavery in her colonies, saying colonial soil was not as common law England's free soil. Thus, slavers trafficked slaves out of Africa and about England's colonies to the profit of England's banking and trading monopolies. Though the American colonies hated the English monopolies, through slavery they had become entangled with them. Finally, the words any place subject to their jurisdiction acknowledge that the jurisdiction of the general government applies not within any state. If it did, these words would have outlawed slavery in all the states, but they did not. To sum up, though appearing right in principle, Amendment 13, by using our Constitution contrary to its design to limit government, failed to end slavery and thwarts freedom to all. In fact, after the dust settled and the passions of the war subsided, Amendment 13, as also 14, lay dormant, unused for about 70 years. All right, that is the end of this week's reading, and I will see you on the next call. Peace and love.